The next section is about your environment. Create an environment where you can focus, free of distractions. First, I'm going to give you some ideas to minimize your office distractions. Get in early. Now, I know this sounds obvious, but I get more work done between, say, 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning than I do between 9 to 5 in the workday. I even get more work done between 6 and 9, so if you can get in early, it helps you avoid those distractions like ringing phones, interruptions from colleagues. Tidy your workspace. Again, this sounds obvious. If you have a messy workspace, your priorities are set by what gets your attention first, rather than by your most important task, which is what your task list is for. Ignore news and social chatter. News is accessible 24 hours a day now. You can go online. Not all news is real news, and not all news is what's really should be concerning you. Screen your calls. Turn on caller ID on your mobile or on your desktop phone. If you're expecting an important call from someone, then take a call from that caller ID. But if most of your calls are unimportant and are going to interrupt something that's more important that you're working on, then definitely screen those and let them go to voicemail or redirect them or do whatever you need to do. Schedule your email and social media. So I mentioned earlier that you should never start your day in email. I still say that. I would schedule, anywhere between 2 and 4 times a day. Some people can get away with even less than that. But those times to check your email and check your social media, rather than letting email notifications and sounds and social media alerts interrupt your day and tell you what's important, because often we respond to alarms and alerts and pop-up boxes, and really we should be checking those things when we have the time. Email's not urgent. You can come up with a way for people to contact you if something is urgent. You might opt for them to call you on your mobile, and you can put that as an autoresponder on your email. Bookmark articles for later. So often we're browsing online, and marketers are incredibly good at finding something that gets our attention these days, a headline that catches our eye or a picture perhaps. Instead of diverting your attention away from what you're doing, perhaps you can bookmark that article for later. And certainly I know in Windows now there's a reading list. You can add things to your reading list. You can come back to them when you've got some time. Facebook has something similar. You can actually bookmark items within Facebook. So if you come across something interesting on there, bookmark that for when you've got some time. So I'm going to mention some ways to prevent personal interruptions in the office. So often people work in shared workspaces or in environments where they can't necessarily close and lock the door. But I'm going to suggest some ways that you could work in both types of environments. Close or lock your door, obviously, if you've got one. Remove your visitor's chair. So often people have a visitor's chair in front of the desk that makes it look inviting for people to come in, sit down and have a chat. Take that visitor's chair away and only bring it out when you've got someone who you want to feel welcome. Put your big headphones on. This sounds weird, but those big oversized headphones often keep people from interrupting you because they think you're busy. Or if you have a headset, for example, a phone headset that makes it look like you're talking to someone, sometimes that can help, and that can give a non-verbal signal that you don't want to be interrupted. Change your status to Do Not Disturb. Often if you're on Skype or if you're on some sort of video conferencing or instant messaging software at work, you can change your status so that it says Do Not Disturb. And if your colleagues are on that, they should be able to see that as well. There's instant messaging applications designed just for the office. Often they have a status update as well. So change to do not disturb, or at the very least busy. I find people still interrupt you when it only says busy though, so if it's something really important, mark it as do not disturb. Turn your phone ringer down or off. Again, it's responding to the urgent when the phone rings. If the phone calls are likely to be less important than what you're working on, then just ignore them for the time being. They can go to voicemail, you can redirect them, but you can turn your phone down or off, and that applies to your mobile as well. Use a do not disturb sign. Again, really basic, but sometimes when you're in an open office you need something like that, or you could hang one on your door if people are knocking all day long. Schedule interruption times. What I mean by that is if you know it's part of your job to be interrupted throughout the workday, perhaps you can try and channel some of that into specific times. You could tell people to call you between certain hours. You could tell them you're going to be available to address their concerns at a particular place between certain hours. For example, I spoke to someone recently whose job is to help people do research, but that was only part of the job. So I suggested if anybody interrupts them of a morning, to invite them back to a workshop or an open forum in the afternoon, between certain hours, so this person knew they were going to be interrupted during those times. Brainstorm some ways to say no. So everybody's situation is unique, but you should be able to come up with some ways to say no without causing offence, and I'm going to go into some of those later in this course. Stand immediately when someone enters your space. This stops people from feeling comfortable with walking into your space, and it makes it clear that you've been interrupted. So stand up, and if need be, start walking around the other side of the desk. Start motioning as if you're walking someone out. It sounds really rude, but people need to understand that you're busy and they are interrupting you. And find a way to escape the office. So some people don't have this flexibility, but for everyone else who is able to work from home, work from a park, go to a cafe, even if it's only for an hour, it could be a scheduled lunch break. If you're really struggling to get things done, get out of the office, go to somewhere where you are less likely to be distracted by colleagues, ringing phones, emails, etc. So there are a few ways to prevent computer interruptions as well. Obviously most of us work on computers these days, and computers are really good at interrupting us, as I said before, with alerts and pop-up boxes. So here's a few ways to prevent those interruptions. Keep your desktop clean and tidy. So that's the desktop background. Shouldn't be filled with all these random files. Try and get used to sorting those and saving them in folders in your documents. And also, if it's a program that you need urgently, add it somewhere that's more productive than just being randomly added on the desktop. Save and sort your files in folders. That's pretty much the last point, was save something to an appropriate location. If you have a messy computer desktop, it's like having a messy work desk, a physical workspace. Whatever is on the top and whatever's most prominent and gets your attention is where you will focus. Turn off new email notifications. Turn off social media notifications. Schedule times for email and social media. Set a productive launch page. So what I mean by that is when you go into your internet, whether that's Internet Explorer, Safari, Chrome, or any of the other browsers, if you have a landing page that launches when you first start up, set it to something productive. Don't leave it on a news page or something that's an entertainment page designed to distract you. maybe put it on your calendar. If you have an online to-do list, you could open it up to that, or you could open it up to industry-specific news that's going to help you with your work role today. And as I mentioned, bookmark items to read later. You don't need to read everything now, but there are ways to sort these things so you can come back to them later. And use reading mode if available. So I know Microsoft Edge has reading mode. That's what I use quite frequently. Reading mode makes it a little bit easier on the eyes. So it changes the font, changes the background, but it also removes those distracting ads from the side. So banner ads and things designed to distract you, reading mode actually removes those. How to prevent smartphone interruptions. So obviously with smartphones today, just about everyone has one in their pocket. So there's a few ways to prevent those interruptions. Again, mark your chat presence as busy. Skype and all of those instant messaging applications usually have a mobile app to go with them. So mark yourself as busy in that app if you're going to have your phone with you. Turn off email alert sounds, again on your mobile. The tendency is if you get an alert sound, you pick up your phone, and I've seen people do this in meetings, I've seen people do this in the office, and I've seen people do it in personal interactions where, you know, somebody's trying to talk to them, but they're not paying attention to that person. Likewise, turn off social media alerts. If for some reason you have an app that you can't turn off the alerts, I would probably consider taking the app off completely and just logging on through your internet browser. That's what I've done on my desktop. I haven't done it on my mobile because I find it more convenient to check through the app. Uninstall disruptive apps, as I said, if there's something where you cannot turn off notifications, and I have removed one of those from my mobile before, certainly take that off. Turn caller ID on. I mentioned the idea of screening calls before. You should know who's calling. Often if I have a number that's calling from interstate or overseas, I simply won't take that call because I know it's a telemarketer. And you can actually block unwanted callers on most phones. They'll let you block certain incoming callers or restrict and only allow certain callers through. So if you need to take calls from your boss or from your immediate team because of something you're working on, then you can allow those calls through and you can block calls from everyone else. And turn the ringer volume down.